to Kansas, gateway to Oz. Under the rainbow, this is where it was. Hollyhocks and red ripe tomatoes, hand-churned homemade ice cream. Let me tell you, Kansas is more than tornadoes. It's the best part of Dorothy's dream.
Today on Around Kansas, join us for a trailer about the book Silver Shoes by Paul Miles Schneider. Then join us for a story about the woodchuck and how they are moving west. Next, we'll have a poem from Ron Wilson, and we'll end with a look at elections and politics. Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center. Your stem cells, your health, your life.
Welcome to Kansas.
Well, hello again. I'm Frank Debs out in western Kansas, and this is Around Kansas, the show about people, places, and things that make Kansas a great place to live, work, play, and come visit. If you've never visited Kansas, well, come, see us. There's lots of stuff to see and do here. Yes, there is. And it's not just Dodge City and Marshall Dillon. Of course, he never existed. But I do have a story years ago when I was first starting out in radio sales. We were talking to a media buyer at an agency on the East Coast, and we had her believing that Marshall Dillon was in town today, and we were going to go interview him later. Anyway, it was kind of a naughty thing to do, I guess, but it was fun. And for a long time, she believed that Marshall Dillon was real. Okay, anyway, hey, it's Let's Pretend time. Today is Halloween, so happy Halloween. And if you want to be Marshall Dillon, why, put on the old six-shooter and the hat and be about 6'4", and you can go do that then. Anyway, do you know that James Arness, that played Marshall Dillon, was one of the first guys on the beach during D-Day? And one of the reasons is because he was so tall. They didn't know how deep the water was, so they figured if he goes under, it's deep here. Well, actually, the water was okay. He made it onto the beach, obviously. Anyway, World War II hero. Let's see, Halloween it is today. I hope if you have a Halloween party, it's a very safe and sound one. And, of course, if the kids are going to be trick-or-treating, I don't know, in the past few years, we've had very few kids come to our house. Number one is the kids in the neighborhood have grown up, but there seem to be a lot of places now where kids can go and trick-or-treat, like at the shopping malls and shopping centers and what have you. So anyway, have a safe and sane one, and then party time. Okay. I think we said something about this last week, but Halloween, as far as retail sales goes, is one of the bigger holidays now, because there is a lot more dressing up, and mostly by adults. And some of the makeup is just unbelievable. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of zombies this year because of Walking with the Dead and all of that. But anyway, let's see. Today, Deb out in western Kansas has some stories, for some strange reason, about groundhogs. Now, this is the last day of October, and Groundhog Day, of course, is in the spring, so it'll be interesting to see what she has to say about groundhog. And then Paul Miles Schneider out of Lawrence, Kansas, is an author, and he has a series of books called The Silver Shoes. She'll be talking about that. And Ron Wilson, our poet laureate, will also have a poem. So lots of stuff to look and see at today, and you'll see them and hear them after you see this.
Hi, I'm Kim Mandarin with Hardy Insurance. I'm here to help you with all of your farm and ranch needs. When it comes to protecting your operation and your family, you need a name you can trust at a price you can afford. Call me today or visit hardyaviationins.com.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
Fort Wallace was the fightingest fort in the West. Fossils, Indians, soldiers, scouts, wagons, trails, pioneers, stories. Discover the story of Fort Wallace and the people who served here, the people who fought here, the people who settled here. Wallace County, where the past is present.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center. Your stem cells, your health, your life.
Paul Miles Schneider was born in New York City and raised in Lawrence, Kansas. At various times, he has been an actor, writer, composer, singer, and arranger. Paul's mother was an actress on Broadway and live television in the 1950s. His father, a freelance photographer for Life magazine and a cameraman on The Patty Duke Show. And his paternal grandfather, Samuel Schneider, was the executive vice president and treasurer of Warner Brothers from the studio's inception until 1955. In 2010, Paul relocated to the Midwest from Los Angeles, where he had spent a decade producing and designing DVD, Blu-ray menus, and interactive content for Hollywood films and television shows, working on everything from the Star Wars and Harry Potter movies to the X-Files and Friends on TV for their home entertainment releases. Silver Shoes was Paul's first novel, selected as a 2010 Kansas Notable Book by the Kansas Center for the Book and the State Library of Kansas. A sequel, The Powder of Life, was released in 2012. Another book, More Than Tongue Can Tell, co-authored with Warner Brothers film star Andrea King, was published in 2014. The third novel in the Silver Shoes series, called The Magic Belt, has just been released. Now that Christmas is just around the corner, nothing could be more perfect for the reader in your family, especially the Oz fan, than this series. Kudos, Paul. We are so glad you came home to Kansas.
With nearly 100 years of broadcasting excellence, Ren Radio is now live on the internet playing hit songs of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Join Jack Diamond, Mac Collins, Les Glenn, Frankie C., Antonio Barber, Wings Callahan, and the real Don Steele for some of the best music ever recorded. Hear it at rendigitalmedia.com or get the Ren Oldies Radio app in Play Store or App Store and tell Alexa, good times and great oldies on Ren Internet Radio.
This segment brought to you by the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center in Oakley.
There used to be a boundary, a line roughly from Manhattan to Ark City, and woodchucks wouldn't cross it. They remained in the east, like a good woodchuck should. But lines are meant to be crossed, rules are meant to be broken, limits are meant to be pushed, etc., etc. So as surely as there is a squished groundhog on the road, the little beasts are moving westward. Perhaps it was the overcrowding in Johnson County. Whether you call him a woodchuck or groundhog, he'll soon be everywhere, so it is probably a good idea to understand his habits. His scientific name is Marmota monax. The first part, marmota, or marmota, is the Latin word for marmot, the name given to the European marmot or the North American marmot, which is a close relative of the woodchuck. The last part, monax, is an American Indian name for this rodent and means the digger. It alludes to the woodchuck's habit of excavating burrows. The early morning and evening are preferred for feeding, as woodchucks depend on dew for much of their water intake. They eat large quantities of succulent plants. Woodchucks can become a nuisance when their feeding conflicts with people's gardening efforts or when they dig burrows in hay fields. There is a year-round season on groundhogs, and there is no limit, though you must have a hunting license to take them. They may feed in gardens, flower beds, alfalfa, and clover fields. Occasionally, woodchucks damage young trees in orchards or nurseries. Although woodchucks will climb trees, they prefer to eat fruit on the ground and normally do not cause damage by climbing trees to eat fruit. The woodchuck has a compact, chunky body supported by relatively short, strong legs. Its tail is short and bristly. Its forefeet have long, curved claws that are adapted for digging around burrows where it seeks refuge and hibernates during the winter months. Its color is usually a grizzled brownish gray, although fur color may vary from white to black. Woodchucks have chisel-like incisor teeth. From tip of nose to end of tail, woodchucks are approximately 20 to 27 inches long and weigh from 5 to 12 pounds, though I've noticed some pretty fat ones lately. They sleep on tops of fence posts, on stone walls, large rocks, fallen logs, and grassy areas, all of which are close to the burrow entrance. Even feeding woodchucks normally do not travel farther than 50 yards from their dens. There are exceptions, especially where love is concerned, as male woodchucks have been known to travel long distances to find a mate, and on occasions, woodchucks will travel several hundred yards for forage in time of drought or to eat fallen orchard fruit. Dens are typically located on the edge of woodlands, in fields along fence rows, or in little used barns or sheds. Often woodchucks will take up residence in stone walls or woodpiles, using several auxiliary dens for shelter. The burrows dug by woodchucks are from 25 to 30 feet long and 2 to 5 feet deep. Normally, 2 or 3 entrances are used, although there may be as many as 5 entrances. The main entrance is identified by the mound of excavated dirt and stones that surround the entrance. A single chamber is formed at the end of the main entrance, which is used for sleeping and the young. Another room is used as a restroom. In this way, the den is kept relatively clean and free from disease. Sort of reminds me of the little kangaroo rat whose burrows have a living room, literally a room for socializing, in addition to rooms for sleeping and storing food. The life that may be going on right under your feet is pretty amazing. Welcome to Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in Oakley, Kansas on I-70 at exit 76. I-70, after all, is America's Main Street, and we're right here on Main Street for you. Now that I'm an Oakley resident, I still come in almost every day, and I sit and listen to the conversations of the people around me. You know, the guys who are talking about the big elk they just bagged, or the folks who are taking their kid to college for the first time. People just traveling up and down the highway. Real people, just like you and me. And they find just what I find here, real people to serve them. There's history, there's scenery. We hope you'll stop and see us soon. Welcome to Oakley. Highways 40, 83, and I-70 come together right here in Oakley. Roads that lead to businesses, to magnificent rock formations, to scenic vistas, to places where legends were made. Roads that lead us home. Discover Oakley, the gateway to western Kansas.
I had this horse. It was a good horse, except when the wind was blowing above 30 miles an hour. Wind was blowing about 35, 40, and I saddled him up, rode him out to the end of the lane, and I thought, well, he's doing pretty good. And about 6 jumps later, I was laying on the ground and thinking, boy, my shoulders sure hurt. I kept waiting, and it didn't get better, and so I went to an orthopedic surgeon, and that showed that I had torn rotator cuff. And said, well, I have to do surgery. I farm and ranch by myself. This is not going to work out very well. I'd been sleeping in my recliner for about 2.5 years because it hurt too much to sleep in bed on my side. I'd heard about Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center on the radio. Gotten down there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 11:30 the procedure was all over. They just took some fat out of my side here and spun that down for about 45 minutes and then injected it in my shoulders, and I was on my way. It's something you don't hear about, but I thought it was worth a try, and I'm really pleased. It's really worked out well for me.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
The cowboy is known as a symbol of independence. He's out there in the wilderness on his own. But there were also times when the cowboys would come together for roundups and gathers. And so those two contradictory terms are something that I've thought about quite a bit. I wrote this poem called, Can People Collaborate? In the history of Kansas, to me it seems, our people have followed two differing themes. Rugged individualism is one of those foundations, but the other was the theme of cooperation. Our pioneers and explorers were rugged individualists, and Kansans' love for independence still persists. But the amount of cooperation was also amazing, from creating farmer co-ops to neighborhood barn raisings. So which of these directions should we value today? I believe we need both in different ways. We should utilize our freedom to choose to work together for common values. In our history, the most extreme individualists, I believe, were the ones who ended up becoming horse thieves. And those horse thieves and rustlers found their ultimate fate, getting hung by a bunch of men who learned to cooperate. Happy trail.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for that grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well on their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, we'll be glad to answer and work with you.
Are your cows practical or profitable? If you want them to be both, come to the Dale Banks Angus Bull Sale Saturday, November 17th near Eureka, Kansas, selling 140 yearling and coming 2-year-olds who have spent their days on the rugged pastures of the Flint Hills. For 114 years, the Perriers have been focused on providing hard-working, balanced trait bulls for progressive cattlemen nationwide. Make plans to join us November 17th or pre-register to bid online. For more information and to view our catalog, visit www.dalebanks.com.
As fourth-generation farmers themselves, Heinen Brothers Ag Service understands the risk and rewards of farming. So when it comes to quality aerial and ground application, fertilizer, ag chemicals, and anhydrous ammonia, call Heinen Brothers Ag today, 800-760-4964.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Just chuckling because, we just got through with an election not that long ago. And then you think, what's funny about politics? But there's, we've had a lot of great sayings and characters.
What's not tragic is funny. You've got to laugh to keep from crying a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Even though we both have good friends among the Kansas legislature who are not crazy, but, it's like you get them under the dome and something happens, doesn't it, Frank?
Yeah.
It's just...
It's like wearing a little hat made out of tinfoil.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, the dome's copper, so maybe they put tinfoil in it. I don't know.
Maybe. Could go back to that alien thing. We were talking about the abduction thing. Maybe that's got something to do with it.
Could be.
Could be a landing thing up there. I don't know. A portal. Yeah. There we go. That's how urban legends get started, isn't it? Well, let's take a look at some of the more pithy and not so, actually, they're sort of pessimistic comments for the most part about politics. There's an old joke about the oldest profession being prostitution. The punchline is that politics is the oldest profession because who do you think created the chaos from which God formed the world? Kansas has a long tradition of political participation. People move to Kansas to vote, a unique story among the states. We have always enjoyed a higher than average voter turnout and have had a disproportionately high number of national candidates like Alf Landon and Bob Dole. President Dwight D. Eisenhower, arguably among our most historically significant leaders, said the proudest thing he could say was that he was from Kansas. So, let us Kansans reflect upon politics, not just this year's election, but the nature of politics, unchanged since the beginning of time. John Kenneth Galbraith no doubt expressed the opinion of many folks when he commented, "Politics is the art of choosing between the disastrous and the unpalatable." And another timely quote comes from Gore Vidal. By the time a man gets to be presidential material, he's been bought 10 times over. And even more depressing from Aesop. We hang the petty thieves and appoint the great ones to public office. Will Rogers has been the go-to pundit for decades, and he never disappoints. "I don't make jokes, I just watch the government and report the facts," he said. He also came up with this little gem, "A fool and his money are soon elected." Likewise, Mark Twain. Suppose you were an idiot, and suppose you were a member of Congress. But I repeat myself. I have always been a fan of Ambrose Bierce and the Devil's Dictionary, which contains the following. Conservative, noun, a statesman who is enamored of existing evils, as distinguished from the liberal who wishes to replace them with others. President Lyndon Baines Johnson had a reputation for plain speech, and he could not have said it plainer. Being president is like being a jackass in a hailstorm. There's nothing to do but stand there and take it. The UK's Maggie Thatcher expressed my personal sentiments best when she said, "I am extraordinarily patient, provided I get my own way in the end." Ken Hubbard said, "We would all like to vote for the best man or woman, but he or she is never a candidate."
Well, happy Halloween. I'm Frank, and she's Deb out there, and we'll see you somewhere around Kansas.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.
Kansas is more than tornadoes. We're the best part of Dorothy Street.